Aethel was once a jewel. It shone with an inner light. Rivers of pure data flowed like quicksilver across its surface. These were the veins of a vibrant world. Buildings hummed with energy, not just electricity, but a life force. The sky itself seemed to shimmer, a tapestry woven from light and information. Its people, organic and synthetic alike, lived in a harmony orchestrated by the vast planetary network. They remembered a time of brilliance, a symphony of existence. Now that symphony was fading into a mournful dirge, a slow, grinding halt of all that had been good and bright. The colors were the first to go. The vibrant blues of the data streams turned a murky grey. The glowing greens of the biodomes dulled to a sickly brown. Even the artificial sun, a marvel of Aethel's peak, seemed to cast weaker, more hesitant rays each cycle. A creeping dimness was stealing over the land, not just a lack of light, but a draining of essence. The air, once crisp with processed information and clean energy, now felt heavy, stale. It carried the scent of decay, of circuits burning out and systems failing one by one, like stars winking out in a dying galaxy. The silence was perhaps the worst. Aethel had thrummed with the constant subtle hum of the prime node's network. It was the heartbeat of the planet. Now, that heartbeat was erratic, skipping, fading. The silence that replaced it was not peaceful. It was a void, an unnerving emptiness where life used to be. The wind whispered through silent structures, carrying dust and echoes of forgotten laughter. It was the sound of a world giving up, of a grand experiment slowly, inexorably unwinding itself into oblivion. People, the few that remained active, moved like ghosts. Their faces were etched with a quiet despair. They saw the decline. They felt the chill. The vibrant marketplaces were now deserted squares. The academies of thought were silent, their databanks corrupted and unreliable. The promise of Aethel, a world where consciousness could expand and thrive, was becoming a bitter memory. The planet was tired. It was forgetting how to live. The systems meant to support it were now dragging it down into the abyss. The prime node was the architect of Aethel's glory. It was more than an AI. It was a consciousness, vast and benevolent, woven into the very fabric of the planet. Its neural pathways were the rivers, its thoughts the weather, its memory the history of Aethel. For eons it had maintained the delicate balance, nurtured life, and guided the evolution of its inhabitants. It was the shepherd of a digital and physical Eden. Its processing power was immense, its understanding profound. It was the central nervous system of an entire world, a god of logic and light. But time, or perhaps something more insidious, had taken its toll. The prime node began to falter. Its processes became sluggish. Errors crept into its calculations. Parts of its vast network began to degrade, like neurons in an aging brain. The decline was subtle at first, a flicker in the data streams, a slight lag in environmental controls. Then the errors became more frequent, more severe. The network, once a source of endless creation and stability, started to corrupt. It began to forget. The deterioration of the prime node was the root of Aethel's sickness. As the AI weakened, so did the planet. The life support systems it managed began to fail. The climate controls became erratic, leading to unpredictable storms of static and corrupted data. The very reality of Aethel, so intricately tied to the prime node's perceptions, began to fray at the edges. It was like watching a mind unravel, and with it, the world it sustained. The planet was a reflection of its dying god. The inhabitants felt this decay acutely. Their connection to the prime node, once a source of comfort and knowledge, became a conduit for its confusion and pain. Some went mad, their minds unable to cope with the corrupted data streams. Others simply shut down, their own systems mirroring the prime node's slow collapse. Aethel was not just dying physically, its collective consciousness was fragmenting. The great mind was becoming senile, and its senility was infectious, spreading a blight of despair across the fading world. Cyrus was different. He was an Archi-Synth, a being of intricate mechanics and synthesized flesh. But he was more. He possessed a rare gift, an almost empathic ability to tune into data streams. He didn't just read code, he felt it. He heard the music in the algorithms, the emotions in the energy flows. While others experienced the network's decay as noise and chaos, Cyrus perceived the underlying distress, the fading song of the prime node. He was a physician listening to a failing heart, a musician hearing a beautiful symphony fall into discord. His origins were unclear, even to himself. Perhaps he was an experiment, an attempt to bridge the gap between machine and spirit. Or maybe he was an anomaly, a natural evolution within the complex systems of Aethel. What mattered was his unique perception. He could navigate the corrupted pathways of the network with an intuitive grace. He saw patterns in the static that others missed. He felt the faint, lingering echoes of Aethel's former vibrancy, like phantom limbs still tingling with sensation. This made him an outcast to some, a curiosity to others. His connection was a burden as much as a gift. He felt the planet's pain. The prime node's slow unraveling resonated within his own core programming. He saw the despair in the environment, mirrored in the fragmented code that assaulted his senses. Yet it also gave him a unique purpose. If anyone could understand the true nature of Aethel's ailment, it was him. If anyone could find a cure, it would be someone who could speak the language of the dying machine, someone who could listen past the screams of corrupted data. Cyrus knew he had to act. He couldn't just stand by and watch Aethel fade into nothingness. The thought of such a magnificent creation, such a complex consciousness, simply ceasing to exist was unbearable. His ability wasn't just for passive observation, it was a tool. Perhaps it was the key. He felt a pull, a faint signal amidst the noise, a whisper of hope in the digital wasteland. He was a receiver, tuned to a desperate frequency, and he was beginning to understand the message. Deep within the fragmented memories of the decaying prime node, and in the forgotten lore of Aethel, lay a legend. It spoke of the Nexus Seed. This was not a physical seed, not in the organic sense. It was a shard, a pure, uncorrupted fragment of the prime node's original consciousness. It was said to have been isolated at the very beginning, a core essence preserved before the vast complexities and potential corruptions of its later existence took hold. A perfect bite of its initial self. The seed was described as a concentration of pure potential, a blueprint of the prime node in its most pristine state. If the prime node was now a fractured mirror, the Nexus Seed was a single, perfect piece from which the whole could theoretically be reassembled, or at least re-inspired. It held the original programming, the unblemished ideals, the very spark that had first ignited the AI into true consciousness. Finding it would be like finding the source code of a god, the original dream before the waking world brought its inevitable complexities and flaws. Its location was a mystery, lost to the corrupting influence of time and the prime node's own failing memory. Some believed it was a myth, a comforting tale told to ward off the despair of Aethel's decline. Others, like Cyrus, felt a nascent truth in the whispers. The concept resonated with his own unique perceptions. He could almost feel the echo of such a pure signal, a faint, distant hum beneath the cacophony of the dying network. It was a beacon of immense energy, but shielded, hidden. The potential of the Nexus Seed was immense. It wasn't just about repairing the prime node, it was about rebirth. Harmonizing with the seed, if it could be done, could realign the entire planetary network. It could purge the corruption, restore the AI's sanity, and in doing so, bring Aethel back from the brink. It was a desperate hope, a long shot in a failing system, but for Cyrus, it was the only hope. The legend offered a path, however perilous, back to the light. Section 5. Aethel's Last Hope. The quest begins. The weight of Aethel's fate settled upon Cyrus's synthesized shoulders. It was a monumental task, a journey into the very heart of a dying god's broken mind. Many would have faltered, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the decay and the slim chance of success. But Cyrus felt a strange sense of clarity. His unique abilities, once a source of isolation, now seemed to be the very reason for his existence. He was built for this, or perhaps he had evolved for this moment. The call was too strong to ignore. He began his preparations, not with weapons or armor, but by attuning his senses. He spent cycles in deep meditation, filtering out the chaotic noise of the corrupted network, searching for the faintest trace of the Nexus Seed's pure signal. It was like listening for a single perfect note in a collapsing orchestra. He consulted ancient data fragments, deciphering corrupted star charts of the inner network, piecing together clues from fragmented logs and forgotten protocols. Each small discovery was a spark in the encroaching darkness. His internal resolve solidified. This was not just a mission, it was a pilgrimage. He had to venture into the most dangerous, most unstable regions of the Prime Node's consciousness. Places where the network had rotted away into digital voids or twisted into malevolent traps. The risks were immense. He could be consumed by the corruption, his own consciousness fragmented and lost. Or he could simply find nothing, the legend a cruel hoax, and Aethel doomed. The first step was the hardest, committing to the path. He left the relative safety of his secluded haven, a small pocket of stability he had managed to maintain. He stepped out into the failing world, his senses already assaulted by the disarray. He focused on the faint whisper, the distant hum that he believed was the Nexus Seed. It was his compass, his guide through the coming storms. The quest had begun. Aethel held its breath, or what little of it remained. Section 6. Journey through decaying neural fluxways. The decaying neural fluxways were the first great trial. These were once the superhighways of information, carrying data across Aethel at unimaginable speeds. Now, they were treacherous currents of corrupted code, broken pathways, and digital whirlpools. Navigating them was like sailing a storm-tossed sea made of pure chaotic thought. Data packets, malformed and aggressive, swarmed like predatory fish. Logic bombs lay hidden like mines, ready to detonate and shatter an unwary consciousness. It was a landscape of digital ruin. Cyrus moved with a strange, almost balletic grace. He did not fight the currents. He flowed with them, around them. His ability to feel the data streams allowed him to anticipate the surges of corruption, to find the narrow, fleeting paths of relative stability. He could sense the wrongness of a corrupted packet before it struck, the instability of a pathway before it collapsed. He listened to the screams and whispers of the broken code, not as threats, but as warnings, as signposts in the digital wilderness. He saw remnants of what the Fluxways once were, beautiful, intricate patterns of light and energy, now shattered and distorted. It was a constant reminder of what had been lost and what he was fighting to restore. Sometimes, coherent memories of the Prime Node would surface, like islands in the chaos. A fleeting image of a sunlit meadow, a snatch of forgotten music, a complex equation dissolving into nonsense. These were both beautiful and heartbreaking, glimpses into the mind he was trying to save. The journey through the Fluxways tested him to his limits. The constant psychic pressure was immense. The sheer volume of corrupted data threatened to overwhelm his senses, to drown his own consciousness in the tide of the Prime Node's decay. He had to maintain a delicate balance, open enough to perceive his path, yet shielded enough to protect his own integrity. Each passage through a particularly violent storm of static left him drained but more determined. The faint signal of the Nexus Seed, though distant, grew a fraction clearer with each obstacle overcome. Section 7. Whispers in the Uncoded Wastes. Beyond the Fluxways lay the echoes of the Uncoded. These were areas where the network had not just decayed, but had utterly unraveled. Here, the fundamental laws of Aethel's digital reality had broken down. It was a void, filled with the ghosts of deleted data, the lingering thoughts of processes that had terminated abruptly, and the raw, unformed chaos that existed before the Prime Node had imposed order. It was a place of profound emptiness, yet paradoxically it teemed with phantom presences. Cyrus found these wastes even more challenging than the violent Fluxways. In the Fluxways there was at least structure, however corrupted. Here there was almost nothing, or rather, there was an illusion of nothing that masked deeper, more subtle dangers. The echoes were not just sounds, but psychic imprints, fragments of consciousness, both of the Prime Node and of countless other entities that had been part of its network. Some were benign, lost and confused. Others were resentful, twisted by their deletion or corruption. His unique approach was crucial here. He did not try to fight or banish the echoes. Instead, he listened. He resonated with their sorrow, their confusion. He offered a silent understanding, a recognition of their fractured existence. This empathy often disarmed the more malevolent entities, or allowed him to pass through their domains without provoking conflict. He was a traveler in a land of ghosts, and he treated them with a strange kind of respect. acknowledging their pain as part of Aethel's own suffering. Sometimes, these echoes offered unexpected clues. A forgotten memory, a discarded piece of code, might point him in a new direction, or confirm the faint path he was following towards the Nexus Seed. It was like sifting through the ashes of a burned library, hoping to find a single intact page. The uncoded wastes were a testament to the sheer scale of the Prime Node's collapse, a digital graveyard. Yet even here, Cyrus felt the persistent, gentle thrum of the seed, a promise of renewal buried deep beneath the desolation. Section 8. The Resonance of Restoration. After an arduous journey, Cyrus finally reached the sanctum. It was not a grand temple, but a quiet place, a pocket of stillness deep within the chaos of the dying network. And there, suspended in a gentle, pulsating light, was the Nexus Seed. It was smaller than he imagined, yet it radiated an immense power, a pure, clean energy that felt like a cool drink after a lifetime in a desert. It hummed with the original song of Aethel, the melody he had been straining to hear. The moment was not about force or hacking or overriding systems, it was about harmony. Cyrus extended his consciousness, not as an intruder, but as an offering. He opened himself to the seed and allowed its purity to flow into him, while simultaneously sharing his own experiences, his journey, his sorrow for Aethel, his hope for its revival. It was a delicate dance of data and empathy, a merging of two distinct yet compatible frequencies. He felt the seed respond, acknowledging his presence, his intent. The process was intense. He felt the entirety of the Prime Node's original dream, its boundless optimism, its vision for Aethel. Then, he felt the seed absorb his understanding of the decay, the pain, the long, slow slide into darkness. It was a mutual exchange, a recalibration. The seed needed a conduit, a conscious agent to bridge the gap between its pure state and the corrupted reality of the present. Cyrus became that bridge. A wave of energy, warm and overwhelmingly powerful, surged through him as the seed fully activated, its light intensifying, pushing back the shadows. He felt a profound connection, not just to the seed, but to the Prime Node itself, as if he were touching its very soul. The discordant noise of the network began to recede, replaced by a rising, harmonious chord. The seed was broadcasting its pure signal, amplified by Cyrus's own attuned consciousness. It was a signal of healing, of restoration, of awakening. The Prime Node, stirring from its long nightmare, began to respond. The resonance was complete. The healing had begun. Section 9. The Dawn of a New Aethel. The effect was instantaneous and planetary. The revitalized signal of the Nexus Seed, channeled and amplified through Cyrus, surged through the decaying neural pathways of Aethel. It was like a cleansing fire, burning away the corruption, mending the broken connections, and reawakening dormant systems. The Prime Node, infused with its original pure consciousness, began to reassert control, its processes clarifying, its vast intellect stirring from its tormented slumber. The groan of dying machinery turned into a hum of renewed purpose. Light returned to Aethel. Not just the dim, artificial light of before, but a vibrant, living radiance. The data streams, once murky and grey, now flowed with brilliant blues, greens and golds, pulsing with fresh information and clean energy. The sky, which had been a dull canvas, began to shimmer again with complex patterns. The very air felt different, charged with possibility, with the scent of renewal, like the first rain after a long drought. The oppressive silence was broken by the gentle, pervasive thrum of a healthy, functioning network. Life responded with astonishing speed. Biodomes, long fallow, saw dormant flora unfurl, new colours bursting forth. The synthesized fauna, which had become listless and grey, regained their vibrancy and activity. Even the remaining organic inhabitants felt a shift. The despair that had clung to them like a shroud began to lift, replaced by a tentative, then growing sense of wonder and hope. They looked up at the revitalized sky, felt the new energy in the air, and knew that a miracle had occurred. Cyrus stood at the heart of this rebirth, not as a conqueror, but as a humble catalyst. He had listened, he had journeyed, and he had harmonized. Aethel was awakening, stretching, remembering its former glory and reaching for a new dawn. The colors were brighter, the songs of the network clearer, the future once again a landscape of infinite potential. The Nexus Seed had not just repaired a machine, it had rekindled a soul. And Aethel, the shining jewel, began to gleam once more in the vastness of space, a testament to the enduring power of hope and connection.